the educational infrastructure in Nigeria. Are we going to Nigeria? Is particularly of interest to us because education is the key to success, and we want to ensure that the students have proper educational facilities that will enable them to unlock their potential.
All right, so we are going to be looking at what is happening with the infrastructure at Imo State University, because it is troubling as you and I speak, with many of its facilities showing clear signs of neglect. There's a lot of deterioration that's been reported, and this is across the campus, as I understand it. Students and staff are navigating broken walkways, and there's a lot of just... I am particularly interested in how this dilapidation is affecting the learning, how these conditions are actually affecting the student from an educational point of view. So without any further ado, let's cross to the lines and speak to Idonuagbe Akogun, who is the program coordinator for the Electronic Education Initiative, and an education activist. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you? Mr. Akogun?
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, there you are. Thank you very much. I think, please give us just an understanding. I think for those of us that are not in Nigeria currently, perhaps talk us through the institution, as just perhaps give us a little bit of history about the institution and how long it's been in the state.
So the federal government in Nigeria has every a federal institution and a state institution. The state institution is run by the state government, while the federal institution is run by the federal government. So we have public institutions, and these are, of course, public government funded. So the Imo State institution is run by the state government in the state. So that is, in particular, is an issue, because once we have public institutions, they are less funded. So these are always are an issue when it comes to resource control and infrastructure. Most of the institutions we talk about academics and schools. We talk about how these schools are being sustained after the infrastructure has been put in place. Continuity, as far as the students and faculty and professors are being paid, years going after they've been put in place, is always going to be a problem. So since the inception of Imo State University, of course, I've consulted with the National Universities Commission. And so once we put the minimum requirements for every university to go into existence, that the university has the minimum barest requirement to start the program to get off the ground. It looks great from day one. But then the next year and the year after and the year after that, it starts to decapitate after that. And then we have to start going back into to say, okay, what happened? And of course, the students have, they start getting admissions, but we have to realize that these kids are from, poor backgrounds. So we have to keep it at, their school fees are very, very, subsidized. So that is a problem going forward, that these schools are subsidized, they're cost effective, but that is a problem because the state government doesn't have enough funds to maintain the schools. And that's always an issue going forward.
If you are a student at the Imo State University and would like to weigh in on this conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Our WhatsApp line is +2763 406 9126. We'll continue the conversation about the infrastructure crisis at Imo State University right after this.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública Pública para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrado com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção por VIH-Sida. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
This is The Upside for the best African vibes, groundbreaking content.
Well, let's continue our conversation about the crumbling infrastructure at the Imo State University. Joining us to further unpack it is education activist and electronic education initiative program coordinator Idonuagbe or Akogun. Mr. Akogun, let's talk about the current state of the university. Paint a picture for us for those who are not in Nigeria, for those who are not studying at the Imo State University. Paint a picture for us of the dire situation that it currently is in.
So, like I said, once a school is initiated, Imo State University was launched in 1981. So as you can imagine, this was back in the 80s. So at that time, the infrastructure was A+, fantastic. There was no, as far as technology, it was very minimal. But nowadays, in the Western world, when we have all the infrastructure you can think about as far as computers and all those things that the average kid now is expecting as you go into a classroom, we're expecting, AI and everything, multimedia, and, internet capacity. Those things are not necessarily in the Imo State University to utilize. Yeah, even as far as even water drainage going into dormitories now. An average kid is going into his dormitories, and we're talking about rain. In Nigeria, we have in the western region of West Africa, we have what we call dry season and wet season. So now we're going through the rainy season. So in the dormitories, they're experiencing, what they call the leaking rooftops. So you can imagine going to sleep and you're experiencing rain falling on when you're sleeping. So it's that bad. So going to a classroom and you're going to study for a class credit, and you're having to study, take your notes, and it's raining in your classroom. It's that bad. So things are really terrible. This is not to say the governor or the administration is not doing what they can to develop the school. The governor is putting his car in the roads, he's creating conference centers. He's doing what he can, but of course it's not enough. We need a lot more funding to, upgrade the dormitories, upgrade the labs, upgrade more of the dormitories where the kids actually go to sleep, upgrade the classroom blocks. So even they're going into the classroom to actually study and interact with their teachers and professors and experts. These are the things that the students actually need. So these are actually the dire necessities that these kids and teachers need as far as to get the school up to compete and surpass their peers across the world and across Africa.
It sounds to me, Idonuagbe, that basic infrastructure standards are clearly non-existent at this stage. So talk to me now about your role. I think particularly within the space of education activism, you and, I'm addressing you because we're speaking to you, but your entire cohort. What is your role then in finding solutions to these matters that are clearly incredibly urgent?
So for me personally, I believe that it's not just to speak to the problem, but to also help support the government to see how we can be part of the solution. So we have to talk to even, alumni groups. How can we talk to individuals who have graduated from the Imo State University, who are working and doing very well across the world, and to come back to the school and see how they can, bring funding. And, talk about grant programs. There are oil companies across the country who are like Mobil, Texaco, who are doing very well in the country and benefiting. Come to the school and be part of that solution and bring benefits back to the school. The school has different programs in petroleum engineering, so be a benefit to the school. You know, the school has to also speak up. What are your needs assessments? List out what your programs are. List out what your needs are. Let these kids speak up, because we have a lot of brilliant children who can do a lot more if they have the capacity to, do more with a better infrastructure. So this is what we have to do, speak out on these things. So like I said, it's not fair to allow young kids between the ages of 18 and 24 to come to class and have health problems, have fear of getting sick. I mean, COVID just was a pandemic across the world, but we have malaria. We have kids who are going to have cholera. We have kids who are scared of just coming to class and getting all kinds of infected with all kinds of acute diseases. So we have to worry about all those kinds of things. So we have to stop that fear of health scares and focus on ethics. So that's what we need to do. So like I said, if we can get both the alumni get funding as well as grant programs coming in and government to come together and do what they're supposed to do and support programs and funding to get the school to do what it's supposed to, which is educate the children.
Have the teachers or the students, have they petitioned, protested against these conditions? What has their response been?
The governor has listened to a large extent, but there are a lot of issues, from insecurity across the state to health issues from the doctors. So there's so much he can do. But of course, we try and push education as part of the top tier things as far as the scale of preference that he needs to address. Because without education, you're not going to have doctors, you're not going to have color and bring out the best foods. So we have to keep on pushing education as one of the top tier things he needs to address. So it just remains as our needs assessment that if you're going to bring security as one of the things you need to address this year, you need to put education on the top 2 or top 3 things. So we always have to push it out there. So like I say, it's not just the governor. We always push the government up front, but we have the private sector as well. So we are pushing the teachers to come out and speak for the students as well. The students have been coming out to speak out as well. Social media has been loud as well on the needs of these things, of what we need to achieve for the school. So, and the students have been very, very loud. Twitter has been loud. I mean, X, as you know, Facebook and Instagram, that we're talking about the need for this school to speak out. And thank God for Channel Africa. Thank you guys for even giving us this platform to speak on the school. And it's not just Imo State University. There are a lot of schools in Africa and specifically in Nigeria who need a lot more infrastructure to allow the education, quality of education to raise up the bar for going to compete and surpass other schools across the world.
This is such a big issue. I mean, you mentioned, the alumni, you mentioned the funding. Obviously, at state level, there needs to be such a big intervention. So I'll give you an example with issues pertaining to South African students, right? We had a movement a couple of years ago in South Africa called Fees Must Fall, and it was a protest around, the learning conditions of students at university level, and it spread throughout the country. And there were, there was issues around fees being too high, but other issues that were concerning students were coming up. And there was a lot of debate and a lot of violence that took place between the law enforcement and the students, and it became quite a thing. So I want to get to the issue around how it happens in Nigeria. Do you protest? What is the involvement of parents and students then at that level, at ground level, that is?
Oh, the protests, oh my gosh, the protests here sometimes get really violent. Sometimes the protests get really, because the protests can go as far as getting to the vice chancellor's office. They'll, stampede everything and put things to a halt. So they will get the attention of the government really quickly to get what they want and get their voices heard. But the issue is not just getting your voices heard, it's getting action to take place. You see, the issue isn't just, is getting what can you get done? Like we talked about the alumni funding. We need to not just get, protest. It's how do we get from protest to get action, from action to get work done. So it's a step by step. Like I'm one of those people that said that, like with my project with electronic education, it's not just saying, oh, we need to do, speak. It's how do we get from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. With the infrastructure at the school, it's funding. We need to make the government understand that if we don't realize that this is how your government will realize that even with putting money in the school, you can attract funding through the private sector in the school, and at the end, get more attention from the private sector, and it'll be an IGR back to the government this way. So there's so many ways to trickle down understanding between the government and the PPP, private-public partnership within a circle effect. So there's so many ways to do this. But you see, the students and the teachers have to be in understanding, because sometimes anger only results to violence.
Right.
And some students, not all students are that educated to understand that an outbreak of a public outcry of this thing will result to a result. Some of them will use this as an opportunity to rob and destroy. So you have to be very careful when you speak about protesting.
Thank you so much,
We have to be very careful, because you never know who's out there who wants to do the right and wrong thing.
Right. Thank you so much for the update. I think the next time we have a conversation, perhaps it will be a more progressive one. But all the best. I think the work that you're doing, particularly in education activism, is really necessary under the conditions as we look at Imo State University. Let's take a quick step into the sports days to find out the latest.
Sports on Channel Africa.